And what a profound joy it is to celebrate the Mass with you during these Easter days. Remember, Easter is just not one day. We go into the octave that we completed last Sunday. Now we have the entire season. And what a joy it is in our parishes as priests to see full churches. I have very good priest friends, and we often check in on each other to see how the Sunday experience went. And then with Holy Week, with its various different ways of celebrating, say, the Holy Thursday Mass of the Lord's Supper, and then the celebrations on Good Friday and the great Easter Vigil, we say, how did everything go? Knowing that it's not going to be a perfect celebration, one can rehearse for hours on end, making sure that the altar servers show up on time and think you're going to have the so-called perfect liturgy. But then there might be a moment during the Mass where, say, a stray dog will walk across the sanctuary, thus maybe even ruining someone's idea of a perfect liturgy. To have large crowds at a Mass, you could think that you might run out of Holy Communion, underestimating the hundreds, if not 1,000 people in a local church. It happens to us occasionally. What are we called to do as priests? We are not gifted with Jesus' gift of the multiplication of loaves and fish. We are called to break the Eucharist up and make sure that each person has a bit. One time in Easter in my parish, I had to leave the church and go to the rectory chapel to go to our chapel of reservation to have more consecrated hosts to be distributed. But what a great problem to have, isn't it? Having a church that is full of people who are hungering for the encounter with their brothers and sisters, hungering for the word proclaimed by God's people, and then the ultimate hunger that is satisfied through the Eucharist. When every one of those mass-haps, as we are called them, not mishaps, but mass-haps of running out of Holy Communion almost, I think we're an awfully good company. The early church ran into that at this feeding of the 5,000. There's a panic that ensues in the church. We don't have enough food. There aren't enough barley loaves or fish to go around. We only have so much money. But Jesus calms the people. He calms the early disciples, the doubts of Philip, and then the witnessing of people like St. Andrew, who recognizes the giftedness of the child. And Jesus says, bring those gifts forward so I can bless them and multiply them, giving the church abundance and strength and nourishment. For us today, we are given choices. How well are we teaching and proclaiming the Lord's gospel as the early church did? Those men of the early church had that encounter with Jesus, and it's through their witness that many followed him. And it's Jesus' earthly witness of healing and preaching and feeding that drew so many people, 5,000 men. Men. Let's not forget the women and children that were with these men, abundantly. And everyone who is tuned into this broadcast on television or by podcast, think of the impact we can all have. Hopefully, we are greater than 5,000 who are gathered around this celebration of the Lord's Eucharist. Although you're not here presently, by our membership in the community of faith, we pray with and for each other. And for the church, through this Easter time Eucharist, may our church be able to gather a fragmented people, not only in our world, but the fragments of our church, people who might not feel that they have value, people on the peripheries of society who are called, as Francis, our Pope, has said many times again, to be gathered into communion with God, especially as he's declared the year of mercy, which begins on December 8th, so that no one's life will be wasted.